Hello, and welcome back to Time Between Times Storytelling with me, Owen Staton. Took a small break, did a lot of storytelling in that small break, did a lot on Twitter Spaces, which was really successful. Thank you ever so much for those who joined me there. It was a great experience. But now I am back at the Time Between Times. The time when it's neither night nor day, but the sun has gone and the sky is grey. Time when the veil between our world and the fairy world is wafer thin. So thin that for a few moments you can reach into their realm, they can reach into ours. Now is the time that people see ghosts. Now is the time that people see lights in the sky. Now is the time that people see the Tylwyth Teg. So sit back. Relax. Let all your cares and your worries wash away on a tide of tales. For here you are at the fire pit, at the heart of the forest. Far away you can see the Tylwyth Teg flitting from tree to tree. But know you are safe here. The howl of wolves, the growl of bears is in the distance. But here you can listen to stories at your heart's content. And today, I will take you back to 1707, as the HMS Association rode the waves off the Isles of Scilly, with 4 other ships, led by the Admiral, Sir Cloudsea Shovel, great name. Admiral Shovel and all his men had been sailing all over Europe. Some would say they were up to no good, but they were returning home. As they came around the Isles of Scilly, one of the sailors approached the Admiral, who was stood there with his telescope, looking far out to sea. "My lord, there are great sandbanks near the isles, and we must beware when sailing." As a man unaccustomed to being approached by one of the sailors without going through the necessary procedures, the Admiral's temper knew no bounds. "Seize that man! Seize that man! How dare you, you impotent sailor!" He spoke as the ship rocked back and forth. The Marines rushed forward and grabbed hold of the sailor. "How dare you address me like that? As if I am some sort of companion to you, which I'm not. I have sailed more miles than you have had hot dinners, my young companion. And for your insolence you will hang from the mast tomorrow. Goodbye." A gasp went up around the ship. The sailors were totally taken aback by this unnecessary strictness, but the Admiral was true to his word. And the next day, the time between times, just as the sun was starting to set, he had a rope hung from the mainmast, and the sailor was brought forth from his cell. All the other sailors, the troops, the officers, all gathered in a circle to see the hanging. The other ships could be seen off to the side, with people watching across. Clouds were dark. Rain was just starting to patter. And the Admiral stood and ordered the sailor forward. "Is there anything you would like to say, my erstwhile companion?" The sailor looked up. "Let his children be fatherless, and let his wife be a widow." A bag was quickly put on his head, and at the drumming of a sailor, the man was hung. Just as his legs started to kick, at the loss of breath in his neck, the Admiral turned away and felt a shiver down his spine. He recognised what the sailor had said. It was Psalm 109, a curse placed upon him. But he steeled himself and turned around. "This is what is done to those who are insolent. This is what is done to those who do not obey commands, and this is what is done to someone who approaches me without permission. Now back to your posts." As the sailors started to disperse, something terrible happened. The ship, which had been bouncing slowly on the waves, suddenly grated. Everyone fell forward and then backwards, and the Admiral looked at horror, because they had indeed run upon a sandbank. The ship tilted to the side, almost went over, and then the whole mast with a hanging man broke and tumbled into the sea. The Admiral did not know what to do. He looked to the side, looked to the stern, and the other ships were suffering the same fate, all of them running aground on these sandbanks. The next hour or so was frantic, as 4 ships were lost on the sandbanks. Every one of them went down, with nearly all hands. In all, almost 2,000 sailors, officers, soldiers were lost. But Admiral Shovel, he must have got off the ship somehow, for the next day on the Isle of St. Mary, he washed ashore, barely alive. He crawled onto the beach, where an old woman was sat, watching the floundering ships far out to sea. She had been there for hours. As the Admiral crawled ashore, he flipped onto his back as the waves lasped against his body. He looked up, and she approached him. It is said that he opened his eyes, spat out some salt water, and said, "Let his children be fatherless, and his wife be a widow." He looked with pleading eyes at the old woman who stood in front of him, and then with horror as she pulled out a knife and cut his throat. Taking the rings from his body, she buried him on the beach and covered his body with a rock, which still remains there to this day. Upon the rock, if you look carefully, over many years, there is graffiti being put there. This almost legendary grave of the Admiral. But most prominent of all are the words, "Let his wife be a widow, and let his children be fatherless." Psalm 109. And that, my friends, is the fate of Admiral Shovel. A great story to get back to telling you. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and support the channel. I like nothing more than seeing people watch these tales, these traditional tales being told again, putting them out there. If you want to support me, I am on Twitter at ONS Griffiths. Would love to see your support. If you have any suggestions for tales, why not write to me at owenstaton@aol.com. And if you're feeling really generous, really generous, why not buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/Owen Staton. Diolch yn fawr am galon. Thank you very much for all of you who are back and listening. The podcast will resume this week as well, so you can join me there. And for those that support me week after week on Ko-fi, I very much appreciate everything you do. Diolch yn fawr. Take care, my friends. Nos da.